Welcome back, students of the dojo.
Grab your running shoes because we're back on that book treadmill for 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons.
This week, we're taking a look at Fizbans Treasury of Dragons, the newest book for 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Dungeon Masters Dojo podcast. This is a show for game masters and players alike. We hope to bring you tips and tricks to elevate your game and develop the art of dungeon mastery. I'm your host, Louis Aponte, and these are your dungeon masters, Scott Labby and Bill Robitaille. Let's enter the dojo and see what they have in store for us today. I had to run to the store, get the new book.
I'm surprised an ambulance didn't pick you up.
Oh, I am too.
3 or 4 Uber drivers. Dude, just get it. I can't watch you die.
And you laugh, one really did pull up.
He's got pit stains down to his ankles.
I'm going to use Bill's shower after this.
No, you're not. I'm hosing you in the backyard.
So, new book.
New
Yeah.
book. You're making
Fizbans.
that face, Lou.
That's because I'm torn.
You're torn.
Yes. I don't know if I like the book or if I hate the book or if I really love the book.
That sounds torn.
Yeah. That's I don't know. I
Scott doesn't look torn. He looks slightly ripped.
you know,
That's just the creases in his forehead.
Oh my God. I almost choked on my drink.
I think one of the biggest sticking points for this book for me is, and I've been laying in bed at night staring at the ceiling, asking this question over and over and over in my head, and it is, why would Behemoth select his avatar to look like Jonathan Taylor Thomas from Home Improvement?
Yeah.
I would kind of, I mean, if I was like the Great Platinum Dragon, I'd be looking at like Sam Elliott.
Liam Neeson.
I don't know who you are or what you want.
I have a specific set of spells.
But yeah, what page is he on? Page 43.
Oh, is that? Oh, you're looking at the young one. Oh, okay.
Yeah, Jonathan Taylor Thomas.
Not the old one.
I don't know how I feel about this book. I mean, it's got some decent dragon stuff in it, which I like, and I enjoy their take on the dragons. My biggest area of disappointment is, and Bill and I were talking about this on our ride to go pick up Lou's dinner, because that's just how shit happens here.
Yeah, we don't have interns, so he sent us out.
Yeah. It's
How was your dinner, Lou?
It was good, thank you.
I keep telling him, I'm like, we're the talent, we're the stars of the show. I mean, why are we getting you your dinner? And then he's like demanding I come out, step outside. And I'm like, I'm going to get you your dinner. Okay.
The bill paid for.
Yeah. Yeah. Not even that Lou paid for, but Bill.
Yeah. I
pay the man, Bill.
pay the man. But Lou, just pay him.
The absence of kobolds, I find irksome.
I do find it irksome as well, since I'm probably going to be playing a kobold in the very near future.
Oh, not probably. Not probably. Bill is going to be after we reviewed Unearthed Arcana, which we knew was going to show up in a book, just not this quick. Bill's like, I really like it. And I'm like, I really like it too. So he's like, I'm going to be a kobold. So I said, I'll build you one. And I sort of kind of built him one, and then he finished.
Yeah, you gave me a skeleton, I fleshed it out.
And as well as a bunch of other characters.
There's no kobolds in this
book. I was pumped. I'm like, okay, Fizban's Treasury of Dragons. First of all, Fizban is from Dragonlance, and I loved Dragonlance. Second of all, I was expecting the new take on kobolds to show up in here, and I saw very little of Kryn or Dragonlance in here. I mean, there's little smatterings here and there, and no kobolds. So WTF.
I think that was because Wizards of the Coast wanted to fix their original mistake with the Dragonborn. Because the Dragonborn were exactly what you just said.
Yeah.
So they know they have a good thing going with the kobolds, which I think will be in the second book.
Yeah.
I hope so.
I know so.
So a little disappointed on those. I was thinking maybe we're gonna touch upon Kryn a little bit. And I don't know why they're not doing it. I know that they had no issues in the past with putting out campaign settings left and right, and it was like your pick of where you wanted to adventure, and I always liked that.
Well, maybe that's just it. They need to go back, revisit the ones they did, make sure they do it correctly. They seem to be on a decent, I mean, they have they're batting better than 500 on a lot of these books as far as the material. There's some stuff that's, I'm not thrilled with, but
Yeah.
overall, it's been okay.
Actually, because I guess what I wanted in this book, it's not for players really, I don't think.
No.
And so as a player, I was like, oh, a new book that's going to have all the stuff that we'd been getting in the last few books. And I was like, oh, it's not here. This is more of a DM's book.
It is.
But to that point, nowhere did I see anywhere other than everyone's wishes and hopes that it was going to be, targeted to the players anyways.
Right.
So I didn't have those aspirations of, yay, as a player, I'm going to have a whole book full of stuff I can use. I went, all right, there's a new book. Let's see what's in it.
Yeah. I do think that there's some really useful information for a beginner GM in here, particularly with, how to run dragons,
How to introduce
dragons, which can be really kind of a daunting thing for a new GM. I never had a problem with that, coming up in DMing, because I was fed a steady diet of Tolkien and some of the fantastic 80s movies that probably didn't age very well. But there was...
Well, at the time, during your formative years...
Yeah, Dragon Slayer was a fantastic movie for, dragons, and so was the book, The Dragon Riders of Pern by Anne McCaffrey.
I love that series.
That was a fantastic series that was like science fantasy more than fantasy, but still the dragons were there. Plus there's then of course Weiss and Hickman come along, and their whole series of Dragonlance books were phenomenal. I mean, for a young me, I was, even though I wasn't really that young, I was in my later teens, but I devoured those. But what do the kids have today? I mean, I don't know.
I don't think there's much out there.
There's not. Granted, I'm not really in touch, but
I don't think there's anything yet. Not in the last couple 5-6 years that I can remember of anyway.
Yeah, nothing immediately comes to mind. So, yeah, you're right.
And, of course, we had Council of Worms, which had a lot of dragon lore.
Yep.
And that was probably the biggest role-play aid if you wanted a dragon campaign or even have dragons in your campaign. That was phenomenal.
Up to that point, they're basically just giant lizards that flew over your town and burned everything.
Yeah. Which served its purpose. They were magical. They could speak. They were very Tolkien-like.
Yes, very Tolkien-esque.
Yeah. So here we have Fizbans Treasury of Dragons. A little disappointed in some areas, but overall, my take on it was a pretty good book.
It's an okay book. Looking at it from the player side, you got to realize you don't get much. You get 2 subclasses.
True.
You get 3 feats. You get 5 gifts, 5 or 6 gifts. You get 7 spells, and I think it's 12 magic items. And
you should be happy to get them.
And the new 3 different sub races of Dragonborn.
Yeah, your gems.
So that's okay. It's a decent chunk for a player. I don't know if this is true or not, but it does seem like Wizards of the Coast is trying to foster new GMs.
Yes.
There does seem to be a GM shortage. I don't know if there's shipping containers full of game masters on the deck of some ship that is yet to be unloaded, but
quite possibly
there is a shortage, and sadly, there's more players than there are DMs.
And that's always been the case.
That's always been the case. We've been spoiled,
very much so.
Yep.
Because we have a roster of GMs, in our gaming group. Some veterans.
Well, we're
and
spoiled.
some
We have a
newbies.
gaming group.
Well, that too.
I
And
hear a lot.
sizable
I hear
Yeah.
a lot of. Well, it's me and
Like
two
my
or
kids,
three others,
or
my
you know,
kids, or
yeah.
me and my brother and the guy from the street. I hear a lot of this 2, 3, 4 people or 3, 4 people groups, and I'm like, oh, that's it.
And even on social media, like Facebook, I think it's the D&D 5e beginners group. There's always people looking for groups
Yes.
everywhere. It's like every other post. Hey, has everybody got a group going? Or the one that's in or northeast of Boston, I think it is,
Mhm.
a face group that they're always asking, anybody got any open groups? And that's all you see. People either a DM looking for players, which I find hard to believe sometimes.
Yep.
Or players looking for an open spot.
Yeah. Yeah. It's one of those double-edged swords, because we have this luxury of now there's this renaissance, this D&D renaissance, and it's getting a lot of traction, and it's become mainstream, and it's sexy now because you have these rock stars like Mercer and his group, and the Acquisitions Incorporated.
Well, you have actual stars. You
Yeah,
have Van
yeah.
Diesel and
Satine Phoenix.
Satine Phoenix, and
Matthew Lillard,
Yep.
Joe Manganiello, Stephen Colbert, all these.
Jason Momoa. I mean, just a lot of them now.
Jason Momoa plays D&D.
Yeah,
I thought, when Bill said his name, I was like, I thought I saw somewhere.
yeah, he
that
plays D&D.
That he played D&D.
Really?
Yeah.
I like him even more now. Yeah. Good for you, Jason Momoa.
So I mean, there's star power behind it now.
Yeah, and there's, I don't want to sound misogynistic, but there's like there's pretty girls playing D&D. It's not like this weird kind of neckbeard only group. Now you're getting like females, which were hard to come by back in the old days. You didn't see a lot of females playing the game. You
did not.
It was it's no longer a monochromatic fan base. There's a lot of diversity in it.
There's incredible diversity compared to where it started. Absolutely.
Yeah. And so that's great. But with the demand, there comes a shortage in people that are comfortable with running the game. So I think books like this kind of help a little bit. It takes a lot of the, well, how do I?
Yes.
Out of it.
Yeah, it does.
Which is important. Playing is, I don't want to say it's easy, but it is less burdensome than running a game.
It's easier to get in as a player than it is a game master by fits and starts, by a lot. And you're right. And the way they're setting these books up too is they're doing a fairly good job of doing them chronological, where you start off at your low levels and you work to your higher levels in the back. You start off with the lower level monsters and creatures and abilities and stats. And as you work your way back into the book, they become more intense and more powerful. And that's good because you don't have to scan through the whole book. You can just start in the front, pre-read a couple chapters, and in the beginning of each chapter, it tells you how to start off first, second, third level, and then becomes very linear from that point on. So it's easier to follow as well.
That is true. I mean, the more and more they put out books, the better organized they become. And I think that's a big help too. With this book, it's a good DM tool. You get a little bit for the players, which I think is nice. I don't think you should leave the players out of any book.
No, you shouldn't. But I don't know, as a player, would you pay $50 for the book as a player?
I wouldn't pay $50 for the book as a GM. And I understand where the cost comes from because the layout's beautiful, the artwork's beautiful.
Is phenomenal.
I'd tell you the artwork in the book is probably one of the best I've seen yet. And not just because I'm enamored by dragons. And I think he, on page 43, looks more like Justin Bieber than he does anybody else. But that's just me.
I'd go with Jonathan Taylor Thomas for my avatar before Justin Bieber.
I'm going to have to agree with Scott on this one.
If I was like an all-powerful dragon, I mean, like, it's like Justin Bieber. I mean, really?
It's just, I just keep flashing back to the barbarian in the skirt. So
yeah, that The only issue I have with I don't like spending full price on these books, which is why I shop at Amazon. And I know it's a shitty thing to do because there's still some surviving game shops out there that really, really need.
But we don't have any around us. Well, we'll say with an hour and a half.
Yeah,
one way.
But the other thing is too, I'm fairly well established in my job, and I'm fortunate, but not everybody has like $50 in their pocket to drop on these books. I just would like to see them be more cost effective. I get it costs money to do this,
and it's a business. They're there to make money, and you get it. But there's ways to get around paying full price. You just got to look for them. That being said, there's a lot in this book I really like. I like that they go into the ecology of the dragons. That very much so, because that's an area that really wasn't touched on a whole lot. And they also give you the life cycles of the dragons, where before it was like, all right, young and adult. And maybe you'd hear something about something, ancient. Like an ancient. And that was it.
Great worm.
Yeah, but that was few and far between. But here, all the dragons, they go through their life cycles.
That is nice.
And that is not, because you don't know what, because you can, all right, I have a 4th level group. All right, throw a wormling at them. That's still a fairly formidable foe if you wanted to turn into a foe or a friend for that matter, because they still can bestow you gifts.
I like the ecology part particularly because one of the things that I really enjoyed in Dragon Magazine was there was always an article on the ecology of a certain monster.
Yes.
And I looked forward to that very much, to seeing, okay, what sort of monster are they going to dig a little bit into? It wasn't always a big article. It was like a page or a page and a half. But
it showed you that trolls don't just live under bridges.
Right, exactly.
You can put them in a whole lot of different places for a lot of different reasons. And under a bridge is just where it hides that particular day because it couldn't get back to its lair before sunrise.
I love the ecology stuff.
Yes, and this one does a really good job of bringing forth the ecology of the dragon and its areas.
I would have to agree with you on that.
I would too. But same question to you, Bill.
Yes.
As a player, would you pay the price for the book?
Yes, because I'm one of those that has that disease where you have to have every book. And even as a player, I would still go through things, and I would find things as a player that, all right, some players are studying dragons. They have the lore. The player, the character has that. The player himself doesn't.
Right.
So how else are you going to have the lore that you're supposedly learned on unless you actually study the lore?
True. Okay. That's a point I never thought of.
So as a player, you would be able to study the lore because especially if you want to follow some of these, like in here, there's the monk and the way the ascended dragon.
Yes.
That's a class that's open to everybody. Well, how would you know about the ascended dragon and everything that goes along with it unless you read about dragons? And if you do not have the material shy of a couple movies you've seen and 3 of the Dragon Riders of Pern, that's not exactly a library. So if you got this book and went through it, as a player, you can now speak knowledgeably about the lore of the dragon. So is it still for the players? Maybe not as much as the game master, but a crafty player could use this book.
Yes.
And quite a bit of it.
Now that you put it that way, yes, I agree with that. I still wouldn't buy it as a player, though. As a DM, though, I think this is worth picking up.
As a DM, it's very much worth picking up. It goes through an awful lot. It goes into depth about the different breath weapons and how scalable they are. The stat blocks in here are fantastically laid out.
Yep.
They've done a very, very good job with that. The magic that goes through and how the magic has gone through. Now, you said there's only a few spells, but it does go into how they cast, why they cast. Again, the ecology and the thinking of the dragons. Then you get into, when you get into their echoes.
That was cool.
That was very, very interesting. And I read that over a couple times going, I like this.
It adds a depth to dragons that I think was absent before.
Yeah, they were very. A red dragon was a red dragon was a red dragon. Give it a different name, but it was still a red dragon. And even here, it still goes through on Dragons in Play. It tells you how to go through the mannerisms, the bonds, the secrets and flaws, just like your character.
Oh, yeah.
They have them as well. So you can have two red dragons that are completely different.
I like how they go through all the different dragons with their layers.
Yes,
So
they
a
do.
map of what they potentially could look like.
Right. And it, again, wrapped up in the ecology where you have your cold dragons up on a spire of a mountain where it's frigid cold and snowing and ice all the time. And your other dragons on the shoreline and others underground. And so, yeah, they did a really good job of laying out the layers and how they would set it up. And now, obviously, you don't have to use that exact one.
No, you don't.
For your new DMs, bam, it's there, laid out for you. But it gives you something to base off of.
Yes.
And again, the ecology. Another really good section I thought was the reproduction and how dragons,
Yes, I thought that was cool too.
you know, how dragons can pass things on and you go from one draconic form to the next. So that was really cool, shy of, you know, watching dragons go all giggity on the top of a mountain.
Yep.
You don't have to have that.
Nope. What I found interesting though was horde magic and how it works.
The horde magic was really
That's something
cool.
they really didn't implement before, or I don't even think they really touched on it before too much that I can
don't
recall.
think so.
There was little hints here and there.
But now they
They go right into
go
depth
into
about
depth.
the horde itself is actually a magical entity.
Yes,
And I don't even want to say an item. It's an entity.
yeah, because almost anything, depending how long it's in that horde.
Minimum a year.
Yep. Well, depending, because if you slay the dragons,
Well,
it
yeah,
goes quicker.
then it goes much quicker.
little
Yeah, it
quicker.
goes into that
But
too.
you know, we'll go over that in when we break the book down for you guys. But this is just our initial look at the book, I want to say.
One thing that I really like about the dragon hordes is that they give you tables on creating
Yes.
a horde, and that is a very useful tool. I think even for an experienced DM, that is something that's really, really, really helpful.
It is, because like I said, I don't remember it being publicized, or no, maybe that's not the right word, but broadcasted on how horde magic worked earlier in early editions.
No, they didn't. They said there's little hints here and there.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, well, you know, things in the dragon horde, you know, there's magical things in there. Okay. Were they magical when they were put there?
But
There's
levels of
now
magic.
there's levels of magic and how long it sits there, and depending on how old your dragon is
Yep,
how
that
intense
determines-
the magic of the horde, which determines the intensity of the magic items that are
Yep.
in the horde. And some magic items can become more powerful
Yep.
because they're in the dragon horde. So that's all really, really cool stuff.
Well, they've made them very magical beings. I mean, dragons were always magical in
As they should
Dungeons and
be.
Dragons, but they added more depth to the
That's
magic involved with dragons. It's more than just knowing wizard spells or cleric spells. It's something like you're in tune with the universal magic.
Well, yeah, because dragons are universal,
Yeah.
multiversal. If you read the book,
Multiversal,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah. Which is a really interesting concept. It elevates them to a unique level that's not like not a spirit or a god but something along those lines.
revered.
Yeah, they're worthy. Yeah, worthy.
Well, they're
worthy of
being
reverence.
so powerful, they're almost godlike.
Well, the first two are
The first two
gods.
are, yes, but gods in dragons in general,
Right.
But yeah, and some when you get into your ancient, especially on the good aligned ones, you know, they are ascended into the realm of ancient
Mhm.
dragons and gifted their powers by Bahamut. You don't just get there. You got to be, you know, all right, you know, Domus Domus, okay, you're good. You know, come on, join the party.
Wish it was that easy.
You're not quite as good as me, but you're better than everyone else. And that's pretty cool. I think the only downside I've seen in this book, and it's more probably personal than anything else, I like the gem dragons. I just maybe not in love with their abilities.
Okay, and that's totally understandable. But I think their abilities are more in line because they're psionic, more in line than what they used to be.
I think they are too, and I think it's probably balanced a little better than anything I've seen up to this point. Not that I'm liking psionics, but
Sounds like you're coming around a little bit.
Well, I don't think he's coming around. I think the psionics is evolving to where his stand would be on him.
There's been some decent evolution.
There
of
has
the
been.
psionics.
Psionics left a really bad taste in my mouth. In case you haven't heard up to this point, possibly, we may have mentioned it once or twice, but I think I always liked the idea of mind-based magic. I just didn't like the way it was initially done.
Oh, it was way overpowered.
It was horribly unbalancing.
Yes. And
I think they're making a concerted effort to balance it out. Now, I think the initial things, like, Soul Blade and stuff like that, there's still some things in there that I think are just overpowered. But we've gone over that already with some of our other episodes. Feel free to listen to some of our previous episodes where you hear how I expound on how much I really hate psionics. But I think they are doing a better job of balancing it out. And I think with the dragons is a good start because the psionics in these dragons are not overpowered.
Right.
For dragons, they're not overpowered.
Right.
What they're doing with the player characters, I think, is still overpowered.
Some of them, I will agree.
But I think it's balancing, and I think that it hopefully it's because people are saying, "Hey, this is unbalancing my game." I think you need scale it back or do something instead of giving them 2 abilities, give them 4, but don't make give them more versatility as opposed to the strength of those 2.
Game breaking.
Yeah, some of them can be, but I've always liked the idea. Way back when, in the dawn of time, when I started playing, there weren't any gem dragons. There was just your basic dragons.
Yeah, the chromatics,
and that was it. And even back then, I had already created a rust dragon, a bone dragon, gem dragons. I already created all these things for my own, because I wanted something different. I didn't want something the guys didn't see in the book. So I already created these things. And I have them on paper around here somewhere, but it's nice to see them in a book and balanced out very well. But that's it. It's the only thing. It's more personal because Bill has a distaste for psionics.
Right.
But I think they did a much better job of balancing those abilities with these particular creatures. And hopefully from there, they'll say, okay, you got it right. Now scale it back. Because it's too easy to unbalance with this.
Well, with this book, we already see that they're trying to correct some of their mistakes. Like I said, with the Dragonborn.
Yes.
The Dragonborn in the player's handbook are flavorless.
Vanilla. Yeah.
Very flavorless. Now you got 3 flavors to play with.
Yeah.
So I think they are trying to correct their mistakes.
So overall, I like the book.
Yeah.
I actually like it a lot. I like the book a lot.
I like the book. I wouldn't say a lot. I like the book.
For me, it all depends on the scenario. Like I said, if I was a player, I'd be like, I spend too much for the book. As a DM, I'm like, okay, this is good. Now, for our world that we play in.
Well, we haven't gone there.
Well,
right?
That's a different story.
And it is, but our world is dragon-based. All the gods are dragons. This is an excellent source to build, maybe not use in our world, but we can strip things from this book.
Yep,
absolutely.
And put them into our game.
And there's so many things in this book I'm reading going, we already did that. We already did that. We already did that.
We already did
that. And it's like, well, it may not definitely be a unique thing, but we weren't the first one to publish it, so
exactly.
we don't get the credit. Well, we'll take any royalties you're willing to give us, though.
But I will give Jeremy Crawford one benefit with the book, and I did like what he said. With this book, he's trying to make it inclusive for every race, every class to have something from this book.
True.
It's not just for Dragonborn. Excuse me. It's not. You don't have to slay a dragon to get some of these. A dragon could be giving you some of these gifts or powers, or he could have did it, to generations past, and it's just coming now to you.
Yes.
There's a whole bunch of different ways that you can work this in for your character, but just don't say, I have these because I'm making a character. It doesn't work. You need to give yourself a little bit of background when you do that.
Yeah, and I think it shows the evolutionary path that Dungeons and Dragons is on.
Yes.
We got a taste of that with The Wild Beyond the Witchlight.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
With the adventure path where you don't have to have a combat driven adventure.
Right.
So there's all these, and that's one of the things that popped up when I was looking through this book was it seems that, okay, you can go the direction of good old fashioned hack and slash fun, which who doesn't like that? But then you can take a more passive role playing approach, and you can still get some of the boons, if you will, from not having a combat driven adventure or
Exactly. Because anything you do that's other than just hack and slash will only enrich your game.
yeah.
It enrich your play style. It enrich your table, because if you're throwing some thematics into it, I'm going to hope that your table starts to follow.
Yeah, there's nothing worse than throwing role play opportunities out and having one of your players jump up on the dinner table and shoot someone in the face.
That's awesome. And before dessert too.
Well, we don't have to talk about that now, do we?
But it's in the debate rages, right? What's the right way to play D&D? Some people just don't like the passive kind of stuff that was in The Wild Beyond the Witchlight. There's always going to be someone who's not going to care for it, but I think a good campaign is just my opinion. But a good campaign is one that has elements of adventure, role playing, tense moments of combat,
Problem solving.
Tense moments of solving problems,
and a lot of gray areas.
Yes,
And a little bit of comedy.
Yeah. What makes a good movie? All those things, that's not just dark moments.
I'm gonna kill him.
Yeah, but lighthearted moments and stuff like that. The Avengers having lunch in New York City after
their shawarma.
After defending the world from
Have you ever
the
had
alien
shawarma?
invader.
I've never had shawarma. I don't know what it is, but we got to go have some.
Not letting the Hulk in the elevator.
Yes.
Stuff like that. But it works. It breaks up those moments of tension. And there's murderous rampages, while fun in the game, are not the only solution to problems.
To the game.
No, they say we talk thematics a lot. We talk role playing a lot. You want to draw your people in and try to draw something out of them.
Yeah.
And it's real easy to tell if your table has the aptitude for it. You can do the role playing test. Just start a really common accent. Start talking like an Irishman. And if your whole table in the next 10 minutes is now talking like Irish people, you have a bunch of role players that are open to the thematic mind and whatnot. Just go up there and start talking like Arnold. That's it. You did it. All right, quick, to the carriage.
Come with me if you want to live. I'll
be a barbarian. Just do that. And I guarantee within 5-10 minutes, your entire table is now talking like this. If that's your test. If they all are, then you can get away with this whole role-playing thing. They are open to open mind and role-playing and the theater of the mind, and try to draw it out of them. And that's your best bet.
Well, the other benefit, too, is for a new DM, you're trying to figure out, what's the right way to play the game.
Yeah.
So while this doesn't say this is the right way to play the game, this gives you options. So it's like, I don't have to have an adventure full of combat.
Yeah, try it.
Yeah, because all dragons are not going to attack you on sight.
Right.
Well, most of them see you as insignificant bugs
Anyways.
And it even tells you in the book. I mean, a lot of these dragons, are especially when the older ones, I've been around for 3,500 years. And tomorrow, when I decide what to have for breakfast, I might eat your great-grandchildren.
Yep.
Because for you, 3 generations have gone by, and for me, it's the next day.
So final thoughts on the book, Scott?
I like it. I'm not thrilled with it, but I do like it. I think there's a lot of great information. For me especially, because it fits with our homebrew world very nicely, it just slides into that spot perfectly, like a glove. For a new DM, I think it's a really good book.
I do too. How about you, Bill?
I'm going to sleep it with it under my pillow tonight.
Wow, that's quite an endorsement.
I think I like it that much. I really do, because I've always been enamored with dragons, just like everyone else.
Yeah.
But I mean, so much so that I've actually entered art contests drawing dragons.
Right.
I've actually won art contests, and I suck as a drawer. But when I get inspired, I get inspired. So I've always had this certain affinity for dragons, and just seeing the ecology of the dragons in this book just thrilled me to death. And I said, and the fact that they didn't use psionics as a crutch, and for once have done it right. So for that, I think it's well worth it.
Lou?
Well, for me, if you are not into dragons or not planning on playing a dragonborn race, I would say pass on the book. If you're a player that, like Bill said, because when he touched on that point of wanting to learn more about dragons, then yes, go get it. If you're a DM, I think it's a must. If you're a homebrew world, deals with a lot of dragons like ours, then you definitely need to pick up this book. And that's our look at Fizbans Treasury of Dragons. We'll see you next time in the dojo. That's going to conclude this episode. Thanks for tuning in and listening. Please subscribe to the podcast for more great content. If you'd like to hear a particular topic, you can reach us on Facebook at the Dungeon Masters Dojo, or you can drop us an email at thedungeonmastersdojo@gmail.com. Thank you, and have a good day.